comments. We, of course, welcome your feedback anytime by mail at P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84114-5476, by email at council.comments@slc.gov, or via our 24-hour phone comment line, 801-535-7654. Comments we receive on agenda topics are shared with council members and posted to our website, slccouncil.com. The first item on our agenda for today is continuing our fiscal year 2025-26 budget discussions with the Department of Public Lands. So on this item, we have Allison Rowland, Council Policy Analyst, Kim Shelley, Department Director, and Tyler Murdoch, Deputy Director.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, this is the budget briefing for the Department of Public Lands, and I want to mention from the outset, thanks to Councilmember Duke, and I actually was able to catch an error, rather he caught an error in my staff report yesterday, so there is an updated version available on the internet for people who want the real thing and not the mistaken thing. It's just in the first paragraph that's different. Overall, the FY26 budget for this department, including the Gulf Fund, would grow by almost 20% from last year to nearly 60.1 million. Gulf would grow by $6.1 million, or 30%, and the Parks Division would grow by 2.3 million, or 14%. Capital expenditures would be the largest driver of these increases, with Gulf investments in CIP and also the work in parks and other parts of public lands funded by the 2022 GO bond. Other budget growth would be in charges and services, including 20% for utilities, utility fee increases, and general inflation in other contracts that is causing all of that section of the budget to rise very quickly. And operations and maintenance would grow by 4.7% to 4.6 million. So as I mentioned, Gulf is an enterprise fund, and that'll be briefed more fully in the next, as soon as we're done with this one. But aside from the Gulf Fund, the public lands budget would grow in FY26 by 13%, so $33.5 million more than last year. Staff would drop from 165.85 to 159.85 FTEs. And that is due to the move of the graffiti services team and one of their supervisors to public services. And then on top of that, there are a lot of title and salary grade changes for many of the full-time employees. And these were all triggered by by last year's CCAC market pay adjustment funding. So they have been moved to higher levels. Most of the people have been moved to higher levels and are getting paid more commensurate with the actual functions they perform. And currently, they have hired about 195 seasonal or part-time positions. So I will turn it over to Kim Shelley and Tyler Murdoch to tell you more.
Great, thank you, Allison. I'm Kim Shelley. I'm honored to be here today to present the FY25, FY26 budget for the Department of Public Lands. Our presentation today will highlight key budget adjustments, new initiatives, and how we're continuing to meet both longstanding and emerging needs in our community. Joining me today at the table is Tyler Murdoch, the Deputy Director, and behind us are several members of our leadership and administrative team, including all of our division directors, our director of the Park Rangers program, and our new executive assistant within the department. And I'm really appreciative of their support and deep knowledge. It's been invaluable as I've wrapped up my 10th week in this role. Feels like I've lived 100 lifetimes in the last 10 weeks, but really appreciative of the warm welcome that all of the Salt Lake City family, so to speak, has extended to me, and I'm grateful for the expertise of my team in getting me up to speed. I may lean on them during the presentation, and hopefully you'll understand if I need to bring someone to the table to answer a question that I have not yet come up to speed on. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start today with just an overview of the department. As Allison mentioned, there are 5 divisions, many programs. It's a complex group of functional teams coming together to serve Salt Lake City. And each of these programs play a vital role in serving our city's parks, our open spaces, our trails, and of course, our urban forestry. Next slide, please. We have a snapshot of the composition of our team. You can see the breakdown in FTEs as well as our part-time equivalents. We'll wait for that other slide to come back. As I mentioned, each of these team members helps maintain the safe and accessible in our vibrant public spaces. I do want to highlight that 52% of our FTEs are within our park operations, and 79% of our part-time or our seasonal staff are also within our parks division. So next slide, please. So now we're going to shift into our proposed budget insights for FY26 and some of our departmental requests. And these updates reflect rising costs, as well as the increased demand for our services and our efforts to improve how we care for our new and our existing public spaces. We have 6 of our budget insights listed on this slide, but I'll only address 5, as one of them is for non-departmental contract increases that will be handled through another presentation. Next slide, please. So here's a summary of the areas we're requesting our budget changes. This includes inflation-related increases, new property maintenance needs, and of course, park security enhancements in our seasonal staffing, and of course, the proposed related change to the transfer of the graffiti response team to public services. Let's see, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide where we get in more of the details. This is our first budget insight, inflationary and contractual. This is one of our most significant increases related to inflation. Rising utility costs, particularly in water, have had a major impact on our operations. As you can imagine, maintaining these open spaces is water intensive, and we're working to reduce that. But right now there is a request for ongoing amount of $950,091 to help us maintain and irrigate these public spaces. This is also includes a request for investing in our sycamore tree study ongoing to guide our urban forestry efforts. That is something that is citywide and of high importance to many of our residents. One thing I do want to highlight in this budget is that we have 429 water meters just within the department. This does not include golf, and each of those meters have different sizes and a different rate schedule. So I want to kind of give a shout out to Public Utilities, who sat down with Public Lands to go through every single one of those meters and identify what an appropriate rate increase would be for the FY26 year. It was labor intensive, but I think it paid off in us having an accurate number that we could bring to council members. It wasn't too high, and that partnership, I'm really appreciative of Public Utilities for taking that on with us. Next slide, please. Just further goes into study to the items here that were on the previous slide. Of course, we do have the public utilities rate increase. We also were funded through Budget Amendment 3 for 1 year of the urban forestry sycamore study in $150,000. We do believe that should be a 5-year study, so we have 4 more years that we would appreciate support in getting us through completion on that study and determining best practices for maintaining the health of those trees. Next slide, please. I just wanted to take an opportunity. Looks like we went ahead and deleted that one. Just kidding. The next one is new property maintenance. This is our budget insight number 2. And as our city grows, so does our portfolio of our public spaces. Between FY25 and FY26, we will take on as a department maintenance for 28 new properties and amenities here across the entire city. These include new parks as well as new trailheads and medians as well. Let's go ahead and jump to the next slide, which gives a little bit more detail on the breakdown. So for FY25, we are we will take on 16 new properties and amenities. In FY26, there will be a total of 12 that will come to the Department of Public Lands to maintain. Just an example are listed below. We have Glendale Park, Backman Community Area, Marmalade Plaza, and the Foothill Open Space acquisitions are some that are key in some of your districts. New amenities include the Sunnyside softball fields, 24 Foothill trailheads, and of course, a number of right-of-way or median properties, such as the Third West Bike Path and the 9-Lane Trail. Next slide, please. And in direct support of the mayor's public safety plan, we're proposing continued investment in contracted park security services. These teams focus on key parks across the city and helping to create safer spaces for the public. We're also expanding our restroom service coverage from 27 to all 39 park restrooms across the city. And this ongoing request is about $515,000. The next slide, please. We'll talk, kind of highlight which parks will have this. We're proposing to have these patrols. Riverside, Jordan, including the International Peace Gardens, Cottonwood Park, Glendale Park, and then key areas along the Jordan River Parkway. There will be a number of parks on the east side that will benefit as well. Liberty, Fairmont, Allen, and Herman Franks. And as I mentioned, thank you, we currently have 27 of our restrooms within parks being closed at night. We'd like to expand that to 39. That would give us 100% coverage across. And so this is not just an east side or west side issue. The photo to the right, when you first look at it, it's a little unclear, but it's actually a restroom in Sunnyside Park. It's in District 6. Oh, sorry.
And let me interrupt you. We have a question from Councilmember Lopez Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Shelley. Would you please help me understand how you chose these parks? Is it due to critical response needs currently? Is it CompStat data? Can you help me understand that?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to turn to Tyler Murdoch to give you the answer.
Yeah, thanks. Good question. So on the East Side Patrol, we have been conducting and using our Homeless Services budget for the past couple of years, and we've primarily focused that in areas that where we have more challenges associated with people experiencing homelessness. So Liberty Park, Allen Park, Fairmont Park, and Herman Franks have been the targets of those on the east side. For west side locations, similar. Our teams have had a hard time along the Jordan River and Cottonwood Park in these areas, so increased trash removal. And it's also where we experience most of the vandalism associated with restrooms. And so on the restroom side, those are getting closed at night and then opened in the morning. And so it's areas where we experience the highest amount of vandalism.
But where did you get the data from? Was that CompStat, or is that just incidents being logged by our rangers or staff?
Yeah, good question. So we collect maintenance data in Cartograph in our data. So that's how we track and we see where we're experiencing higher maintenance related items. And then we also look at that along with our Salesforce and call logs of where maintenance are coming in. But primarily when we look at increased maintenance for our teams, it's in logged Cartograph data that they log on a daily basis.
Okay. I was just curious because I noticed neither Topher nor Richmond Park were on there, and obviously they've been recently redesigned, and that's thanks to your team, but I do hear of a lot of CompStat data that reflects especially Topher Park as a high crime area, and just wondering if that's data you could extrapolate or use to better predict where we can enhance security. I know we have a big concern in a lot of our public spaces, and we can't get to all of it, but I certainly would love to better understand how we could examine some of these pocket parks near downtown and central city that see these extremities of pressures.
If I could just add one more thing, I think it's a really good point, and I want to make sure it's not limited only to these locations. These are priority locations based on our data, but I think if we have additional needs, looking at CompStat data or working with PD, we can certainly allocate those resources to other parks as needed. We have not had a West Side detail before, and so we don't fully understand the capacity of that team, so I think we'll learn a lot as it's implemented, and there may be more capacity there to kind of hit and target specific areas.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Just to finish up on this slide, the vandalism that we see is not limited to graffiti or things of that nature. Sometimes it's very destructive. This is an example of a restroom in Sunnyside Park where a stainless steel sink was ripped off the wall, and it's a real investment to replace those. And we want to, being good stewards of public dollars, we want to make sure that we're protecting the investment that the city is making into these public spaces. Next slide, please. So seasonal staff are the backbone of our summer operations within the Department of Public Lands, and this budget inside of $304,000 would increase the seasonal hours to 15,717, and we believe this is a real need within the department and a real need across the city. If we go ahead and jump to the next slide, we do a little bit deeper dive into what has been done, and we appreciate the council's support in allowing us to make strides in improving the wages. In FY23, the increase from $13 an hour to $17.85 made a significant change in how we were able to attract and retain individuals, so we really appreciate that support. We also, this year, have enhanced Spanish translation services, and our rehire process for returning has been streamlined, so I also want to thank HR and IMS for their support in helping us think differently about our processes and allowing us to streamline those to make it easier for folks that are onboarding. You know, we do have significant demand across our parks. This is, I'm sure, what you're hearing from your constituents. We've increased in trash removal needs, increased use of parks overall. Vandalism, as we discussed, irrigation repairs is also something that is critical. We need to keep our irrigation systems in good repair so that they are allow us to maintain our properties, and we need more support to do that. We also have a support needs for our events programs that are wildly popular with our residents here in Salt Lake City, and we want to make sure that those are adequately staffed, as well as illegal dumping mitigation. So the next slide is our last budget insight, and it's a negative. It's a transfer of the graffiti team, which is a team of highly skilled painters, and we're excited for them. We are fully supportive of the Clean Team creation, and I know that their skills will be highlighted and a further benefit to the city with this creation of this new division. Next slide, please, has a summary of our 5 requests. It's an ongoing FY26 total of $2.7 million approximately. It's a budget increase where we have thought very carefully and looked for different ways to offset some of those costs to the general fund. And we want to make sure that we're also continuing to deliver those high quality services that are make our public spaces safe and welcoming for all Salt Lakers and our visitors. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions about the budget or anything else you might have in your minds.
Councilmember Petro.
Thank you. And Kim, it's been so amazing watching you work, and especially I'm really appreciative of the time and attention you're giving, especially to my district. It's not unnoticed. On the nuts and bolts of this, I see that the debt principal and debt interest are listed here. Do we expect those to go up as we take more bonds out, or will the bond debt be listed elsewhere in our budget?
That is an excellent question. I'll need to phone a friend if you'll give me just a second. Tom, or maybe
Yeah,
Mary Beth. Okay, great.
it's probably more of a finance question,
Okay.
but we're happy to answer.
I'm proud anytime I ask a question that summons Mary Beth.
Can you repeat the question, please?
So we have the line items here for the debt principal and debt interest and fiscal charges. Will we expect those line items to go up in proportion to the bond tranches, the GO bond tranches that we're taking out, or is it listed elsewhere? And then as we take out tranches, the revenue goes up because we're collecting from our constituents, correct?
The second part is correct.
Okay.
And so is the first part. Our bond interest will go up. as we collect more tranches.
Okay, so I should expect to see those escalate, but I shouldn't stress out because we've already allocated a revenue stream to deal with them.
You are correct.
Okay, thank you. Checking. And then I have two others. I see that the largest portion of our public lands in any one category is our park rangers. And theoretically, I like these. But I'm the kind of person who doesn't buy the designer handbag if her mortgage isn't paid. And I'm a little worried about the decisions we're having to make. I do not want to disparage or eliminate, but when I asked the question earlier in the year about where our park rangers were in responding to park issues, I was told that the issues were above kind of what we were expecting out of our park rangers. There was a higher level of danger and things like that. I would love to consider the possibility that we would cross-pollinate some training with them, either send them to a civilian response team kind of training that would allow them to still de-escalate because they're not fully sworn officers, but allow them to intervene in ways that are more significant so that we're getting bang for our buck. I love educating people on nature, but if we're going into a season where the federal government's cutting things, we're in crosshairs of other levels of governments, I want to be very, very, very judicious. So I want you to hear that I am not suggesting cutting them, but I want to see a greater versatility from them moving forward so that they can be more comprehensively integrated into the city needs. The second thing that I really want to push for, and I'm sorry, I will pass it off to you as soon as I'm done. There is plenty of work to be done in this city. I am not advocating for a reduction in workforce, but I am anticipating that over the next 2, 3, even 5 years, we are increasingly going to be asked to do more with less. I really would love to see a proactive, almost aggressive research of technologies that can amplify the work of what your people are doing. Every time we go to any conference, we are approached by organizations that have zero emissions, fully autonomous mowing capabilities with security things so that we can be tracked down. I am not worried that if we take someone out from behind the lawnmower that person goes jobless. I know you all have plenty of work to do, but I do want to optimize to make sure that the weeds get mowed and we can do these other things. And this is just coming from me. I don't want to see this department suffer as we have to make more difficult decisions, but that to me means that we have to be aggressive in amplifying the good work that's already being done so that we're working smarter, not harder, moving forward. So those are my two insights as I look at this. I hope you don't feel like I've tried to take an axe to you or anything, but this to me is absolutely urgent. And for 4 years, I've asked for metrics on the park rangers. I really want to see real movement on integrating them more fully. I love that kids should know what kind of tree that is or what kind of cloud it is. That can't be the primary function. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. May I respond
yes,
to a couple
go
of things? Thank you. We appreciate the direct feedback, and thank you for thinking holistically about the department and about the services that are provided and how we can better integrate some of those services. So I agree with you 100%. Modernizing some of our practices, top priority. So we will look for ways to communicate that out to council so that you know the direction that we're headed as a department. I do just want to touch on a couple of things with our park rangers, and I appreciate your focus on data and integrating, and I'm right there with you. So I do want to just share a couple of metrics just from the first quarter of this year to kind of help folks and maybe set the stage for future conversations we could have about the park rangers. So within our parks, within the first 3 months of this calendar year, our park rangers had 3,900 patrol hours. They greeted visitors of the parks 13,645 times. Awesome. They also had 4,976, it's about 5,000 separate instances where they removed hazardous materials. Those are needles, broken glass. Awesome. They also removed litter, 1,500 separate instances. They also educated dog owners a few hundred of them in just that quarter on regulations and things like that related to off-leash hours. And that's a big focus in our park. So I definitely hear what you're saying. And so we will take this data that is collected monthly by our park ranger team, and we will assess it and see how we can do differently and better, and opportunities to integrate them in other programs. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilmember Romano.
I just want to add to what Councilmember Petro said with the park rangers. I'm also interested in, I appreciate those metrics that you just shared, but I would love an opportunity to have a more in-depth discussion about what that actually means, right? Like, what does that many thousand greetings actually produce, and is that effective for what we intended with the program? Which I was on the council when we created that program, and I'll be honest, we created a lot of programs that year, and some with really good ideas in terms of what exactly they would do, and I think the park rangers was one where it felt like a good idea. It had been sort of discussed for years, and we thought it was the year to try it. But I don't know that in my memory as a council member at the time, that we really gave very clear direction as to these are the specific things we want to see from the park ranger program. And I'll just add that in communication with some of my constituents, I've heard a sense that some of the work that they're doing is really good and positive, and like field trips with kids coming to the wetlands or whatever have been like really an added service that we've given to our residents. But other things, it feels like, particularly with like the off-leash dog, I think you used the word education. Some people feel like they're just being sort of nagged about their and sort of harassed about that issue, which obviously we want residents to obey the off-leash dog hours, but there's so many other issues within our parks that I think there are people that are feeling a little bit almost harassed by the park rangers in some situations. So I just wanted to share that. It's not my personal experience, but it's just things I've heard from my constituents. So I would love an opportunity to join Councilmember Petro in really understanding what our goals are for that program, and if it's still continuing to serve our needs, if it's right-sized, if there are other places that those resources could be better used.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
Councilmember Dugan.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate all the work that you've been doing, and also the improvements that we've made over the last couple of years. And so that's very appreciative across the board for the whole staff, because you touch so many of us, and we love our parks to death, that we keep on wanting to love them even more to death. So I appreciate all the work. A couple things you touched on in the staff report, or in the report, was that you were able to hire a lot more seasonal employees sooner than later in the past years. And even if you hadn't said that, my number of emails or calls or texts has dramatically decreased on complaints of the lawn's not getting mowed, this is not happening. So I'm attributing it to the additional seasonal employees early on to get ahead of the curve instead of behind it. So I appreciate that, and I'm hoping you're also seeing that on your end too.
We are.
And so, and I have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
On that end, but going to that end, a couple years ago we had a good discussion on deferred maintenance, and this year you have $500,000 going to new property maintenance, but on the deferred maintenance side of the house, and it might be part of this. It's general fund budgeting, CIP budgeting. It's in the budgeting somewhere. We talked, and I'm just looking at because Allison brought up the 2023 budget, where we said there was about $13 million in deferred maintenance, irrigation system replacement of 14 properties. Golf has done a great job on their replacement of 3 courses. That was at almost $12 million, and I think they're doing a really good job because they have they built up the funds, and then they're paying it off at Rose Park and stuff. And then large equipment replacement of $3 million, and then regular cycle of asset replacement of $5 million. How are we doing now in that arena? Because as I always say, and I'm just preaching to the choir, deferred maintenance doesn't go away; it just gets more expensive. And so, where are we on that? Because I have a hard time seeing it here in the CIP.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. First, I want to comment on the spring. We are seeing a reduction in calls compared to last spring, which is a nice change. And we are not increasing seasonals. We are able to hire the existing seasonals that we have the budget for in a more effective way. So we haven't been able to fill all of our positions back in 21, 22. We are filling those now and then using vacancy savings to even increase the seasonal. So we haven't, that's part of the request now, is that increase. Where I see that we're seeing a big advantage in that this year is, quite frankly, the funding that council allocated last year for spring surge in contractual services. It's really helped our teams this year. So we're using contractors for a lot of our startup irrigation work. I mean, just one contractor alone has replaced over 1,000 irrigation heads over the past 6 weeks. So that is time that our teams are not replacing those irrigation heads. So that is one of the big reasons we have seen an increase is that extra funding that council allocated last year. Now, when it comes to deferred maintenance, this is a very good question. I think one of the most important pieces of work that Public Lands is doing right now is a terrible acronym, but I will say it anyways, the Strategic Capital Asset Management Plan, SCAMP. This is ongoing right now. This plan is really to address the long-term deferred maintenance and asset management of public lands. So those preliminary numbers that you're saying around irrigation, what we need annually, we're doing that for every amenity. So 6,000 amenities across the city are currently being assessed by a consultant. And by the end of the year, we will have that firm data to say, and come to council to say, on an annual basis, we would need X amount of dollars for irrigation to address our backlog. So we look forward to that conversation. Currently, how we address deferred maintenance is primarily through the CIP process. We only receive about $250,000 in deferred maintenance funding annually right now. And those go to the top priority projects that are prioritization is set by council back in 2017. So health and safety is the number one of those. But the other deferred maintenance are really addressed in our CIP applications. So that's where you're seeing irrigation repairs. That's where you're seeing bridge replacements. In the future, I think we'll have a lot better data when that strategic plan is done to say, here's how much we need each year.
And then we can also have that discussion on how we will pay for that, because it's not chump change.
No.
It's millions of dollars over a long period of time. And so my final question, kind of along those same lines, you're probably one of the city's largest user of water.
Yep.
If not the largest by probably a long shot. And, you know, I sometimes cringe when I see the park sprinklers on when it's raining or the day after a huge rainstorm. And I know that's not controlled by a smart sprinkler head, but you know, a person turning it on or off, or just leaving it on because it's automatically done on Tuesday mornings at 8. And so I'm hoping part of that, you're looking at how much money are we saving, because it's not only expense because we need the water, but it's also an expense because it's your budget. So how are we addressing our water conservation needs as far as being smarter, and also just why we wait to get those smart meters, how we do that now in a more thoughtful manner of going, oh, we should turn off all the sprinkler systems because we just got 3 inches yesterday.
That's right. Well, I let Tyler chime in here, but I do appreciate that approach, and I do want to, affirm to the council, and we are working towards being sustainable. There is a balance, of course, between green turf that is functional, right? And do we really need to irrigate the other turf that is not used if we're walking on it or it has another purpose? So we will be evaluating those in the upcoming years here. That is something we're moving towards for sure. We do have some smart controllers in place, and I am learning that the cemetery, in the number of calls that I've received in District 3 over the last few weeks, they do have a smart controller, and the threshold is pretty low, but we're working to dial those in. So I just want you to know that is a focus of the department, and I look forward to coming back and sharing some of our successes and how we've, the gallons that we've saved, because not only to your point, a budget cost, but it's also, it's a finite resource as well that we need to be mindful of.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful to see that the data on that says, hey, in 22 or 23 we use this many gallons, same amount of acres, 23 we use this many, for onward, and where are we saving that? Because we're asking for residents to save money,
right.
and we need to be saying, hey, we're the biggest user. We would have a huge impact on that if we did the same thing. And it's just our money also, so.
Just a couple other comments on that. The vast majority of our irrigation meters now are smart meters. So a couple of years ago, council and the administration allocated $2 million for maintenance of bond projects. Well, we hadn't delivered any bond projects, so we used those funds to address deferred maintenance needs. And in 2 years, we've replaced, I can get you the data, but the vast majority of our current irrigation is not on battery operated anymore. So we have addressed that significantly, and I can get that data to you. There are still some battery operated parks throughout our system, and we'll work to address those. I think there's also a story to be told here that we need to do a better job at as well. And that's that many of our parks' irrigation systems are old. I'll just use Liberty Park, for example. If we are to significantly reduce irrigation, some of our older parks, it does come with a big cost to our urban forest. And, you know, in all of our new projects, we are doing 2 separate irrigation systems where you have tree irrigation and overhead irrigation. So in times of drought, we can shut off overhead irrigation and the grass can dry up, and that's okay. And we're not killing trees. But right now, if we are shutting and really reducing a lot of our old parks, we do not have that type of infrastructure, and it really comes at the cost of the health of our trees, which is a big concern as well.
Lopez Chavez.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question was related to a concern that was brought up last year, which was a lot of the maintenance that was being reported by our constituency was due to our operations or our actual vehicles that are being used, whether it's lawnmowers or other types of mechanics that were either out of shop, being replaced, instrumental repair being done. Can you help me understand where in the budget I might find that maintenance? Is it just going to be under maintenance? Is that, I know we've had some budget amendments in the past. Is that something we should expect to see increase? I know that's something that we talk about often in managing these resources.
Yeah, thank you.
Ask that, or just clarify. So the maintenance of existing facilities or existing assets or replacement of aging infrastructure, is that?
The
or
maintenance
both?
of existing, I assume we fix our own is what I understood last year.
Yeah, so those budget, and you'll see this in our budget right now, actually, in some of our new property maintenance requests. You'll see, I think there's one item in there of $333,000 that goes to fleet. So that maintenance budget gets transferred to fleet when we get new properties added to our, so that is always allocated when we get new properties. We do have aging infrastructure or aging equipment, and the timeline and lead time for that is not sufficient currently for public lands to be on top of all of our equipment. And so what we've done the past 2 years, and just as a reminder, we've used vacancy savings each year, and we did it again this year, where we've taken portions of our vacancy savings and turned that into to support fleet to be able to purchase equipment on a quicker timeline. So that was one that was approved in February of this year. We also did the same thing in February of last year to try and replace some of that aging infrastructure or aging equipment.
Thanks. I definitely am worried about that. I know that's been really the catalyst in terms of why our operations might be delayed.
Yeah.
My secondary question that I wanted to ask real quick, I noticed on the transmittal, we talk a lot about tree replacement, but there is an increased concern, I would say overwhelmingly across the city, about the existing urban canopy and its care. Wanted to understand if, I know it sounded like in the past we were open to exploring. I know Dr. Shelley, you mentioned it, you're 10 weeks into the role, but wanted to better understand how we might wholly encompass in this budget more care of that existing canopy as we begin to also replace new or deteriorating canopy.
I'm going to have to defer to Tyler in this one as well, because I do, before I hand it over to Tyler, that is a priority that we have been focusing on, and appreciate our urban forester sitting behind me in his efforts in making sure that, right, go Tony, and making sure that the urban urban tree canopy is
He's very busy,
protected
by
in
the
it.
way. Tony's everywhere.
I know he's amazing, definitely. So I do just want to let you know that is a priority for us. And on the budget side, as we get new properties that are coming in, I'm thinking of the 6th North. We are thinking differently about how are we going to irrigate those trees, and we're proactively and working with transportation to get irrigation run to that, where we will irrigate those trees for those property owners, because I realize it's also a burden that's being shifted to some property owners that may not be able to maintain those trees. So I hope that answers some of your question. And Tyler, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just add one item that's actually in the staff report that I think is interesting, and that's on page 10, item B, and looking at the tree removal mitigation funding. Tony's brought up a couple different ideas on how we can use that mitigation funding to help parks get the infrastructure for specific tree watering, which would help us. That doesn't address right-of-ways, because we do not water trees in the right-of-ways. And that is something that we continually challenge. And I think it's something we probably need a lot more conversation about than we have today here. But when it comes to right-of-ways, we currently only maintain trees in a few select right-of-ways. We water trees in a select few right-of-ways. We maintain all trees, but we do not water all trees. And that is, with the 6th North project, that's something that's coming up a lot, and developing more of a plan on how we can be, as a city, be more responsible for implementing the irrigation associated with the watering of those. But currently, right now, on like a lot of our west side trees, we have reached a point where we don't have the demand for people requesting trees that are also willing to water. And so this year, you saw a lot more trees on our west side go into parks where we know we have existing water.
Thank you. Director Shelley.
Yes.
So excited to have you here for our first budget. I have so much confidence in you taking over the leadership role in this department. And so I don't want this to seem like a gotcha question or anything like that. Okay. But is there something, one of my top concerns continues to be maintenance of existing parks. And that, is there one particular thing that sticks out to you, recognizing you've only been in the job for 10 weeks? Is there one particular thing that sticks out to you in terms of maintenance that you feel like we need to implement, or that you're planning, or any like aha moments with regard to existing maintenance?
Oh, well, I've had many aha moments in the last 10 weeks, and so I would hate to choose just one. But just a few observations, if I can. We do have a dedicated team that takes a lot of pride in their work in maintaining those spaces, and I'm incredibly proud of them, and want to thank our Toby with our Parks Division, and Tyler with our Trails and Natural Lands, and for the work that they do in leading the teams that maintain those those parks and those amenities. I think we're headed in the right direction, I'll be honest with you. As a heavy park user myself, I get the value of those spaces, and I think that as we've shifted from the model of only public land staff performing these duties, and shifting to something that's more contractual based for really targeted areas, and then allowing our staff to do what they do best, has really made a difference. And I appreciate Councilmember Dugan highlighting that the number of calls that he's received a decrease, and we have as well this spring. So we've been able to make get a jump start on maintaining those properties. So how about I get back to you on that in the future?
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another issue that is very closely watched by residents on all sides of the issue is the trails in phase 1, and so mostly above avenues and Capitol Hill, and so every time there's a change up there, I hear from a number of different residents with concerns or with excitement that, oh my gosh, something's happening. They're finally doing something. What are they doing? Referring to the pause. Or, oh my God, they're doing something, and it's something that we don't know about, or maybe wasn't you wouldn't consider maintenance, which is what we had released funding for. I guess if you can speak to, can you give the public that is listening on this issue a little bit more of an idea of the timeline for when you expect to come back to the council to ask for more funds that are not maintenance? And then if you could talk a little bit about maybe what you consider maintenance versus new construction, because I do think that is the source of a lot of confusion. And then I have one more question after that, but I'll give you those ones.
So before I turn it over to Tyler, he is the resident expert at the table on this. I do just want to say your point about communication is well taken, and we we'll make that refocus and double down on those efforts to communicate not only to council members, but also to the constituents that you represent. So thank you for raising that issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, let's start with the pause and the three primary things that Public Lands is working on this summer related to the Foothill Plan implementation. Now, there's also a lot that are ongoing. Things are still happening, but let's talk about the three things that are. When we came to council last summer, we committed to going back and doing additional planning work in a small area planning, and that is what we're pursuing to do. So we have a consultant already under contract to begin that process. They're booked out until midsummer, so they will start that work with us this summer through the fall and have an updated plan that looks at both trail alignments, decommissioning of trails, trailhead infrastructure, restoration, conservation, looks at more broadly. And that was one of the concerns that we had in 2020 is you're only looking at trails. So we will be doing that this summer and fall for the Upper Avenues and Twin Peaks areas. So we anticipate by winter, spring, we will have that document ready to come back and say we are ready to either decommission trails, to restore trails, to build new trails at that time. So that's a big piece, but it's still kind of waiting until we get with the consultants this summer. Second item, which we
Fall, next step, or next big.
Yeah, I mean, they will start working with us this summer, and our teams are already doing some of the groundwork right now in terms of the GIS analysis, mapping weeds, working with Sageland Collaborative on wildlife habitat issues, but with a consultant will come from summer to fall.
Okay.
And that's just for those two areas first, Upper Avenues and Twin Peaks. Second is the Foothill Management Agreement. And we talked about this last summer as well, and we have been working all spring on this with the environmental dispute resolution firm out of the University of Utah, and had some really productive meetings with all 5 landowners in the foothills. So that's Public Lands, Public Utilities, the Forest Service, State Parks, and the University of Utah. We anticipate having a draft agreement, the first one, in Salt Lake City foothills by June of this year. So that's a really exciting change, and that will look both at how we manage the land in Salt Lake City, but also across jurisdictions, because that's been a big challenge for us. I also think it will help highlight the need for other entities and agencies to step up when it comes to maintenance and management of the foothills. So we're excited about that. The third is the establishment of a foothills working group. And this has been a point that has been brought up a lot. It was recommended in our evaluation and pause, and we have a variety of different working groups and subcommittees on the foothills that have worked with us over the years. So we've been working with our advisory board, and they submitted a letter to the department, I believe last month, that formally recommends the establishment of a foothills stakeholder working group. So that will also happen this year, and that is the makeup of that group is not determined yet. The environmental dispute resolution firm is also going to support in helping us with that, which they've helped other municipalities establish those as well. But made up of expertise, could be representatives from community councils, representatives from our advisory board, and that group will be the key working group that will help guide that new planning process. So those are the 3 primary related items related to the master plan.
And what's the timeline on the working group, do you think?
Working group, I think it's very reasonable to have that established early fall as well. The EDR group, they're also booked out, and I think they're planning to start coming back and working with us in June, so next month, to really lay the framework of what that group will be.
Okay.
So we would not add any planning work without having that group established. We need that group established to help guide that process.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I feel like that's a really, really big key to to unlocking this issue and unlocking more information for the public. And so, and I think I made that point in a previous presentation about wanting to move that up.
Yeah.
I would love it if we can get that established this fall, and would love to just receive updates on how that process is going, and once that's in place, because I would like, in the packet, it talks about the adequately maintaining Salt Lake City parks and public lands analysis that we did several years ago, and whether or not we would want to have a standalone briefing on that. I would, and I would hope that we can do that and have meaningful input from this working group on the trails piece of that plan, and have that in place for the budget 26-27 discussions. Because otherwise, I'm going to pull out my greatest hits of talking points on this topic and replay those again. I really feel like that is key. And yeah, so if you could speak to the maintenance versus construction point too, because I feel like that's another piece that leads to a lot of concerns on this area. And you've heard me say a lot of times about getting more credibility with residents, regaining credibility with residents. And sometimes when I think a lot of it comes down to feeling that what's happening maybe isn't maintenance, and and that's a path that we went down many years ago. I don't think we want to go down that path again. So if you could speak to that.
Yeah, happy to. When the pause was placed on construction in 2021, one of the things that was most commonly said is the city really should invest time, energy, and resources into maintaining legacy trails, primarily the Bonneville Shoreline Trail and other trails that exist. So when we came back to council in 2022 and said, all right, should we continue to do maintenance work on that? That was what was discussed at that time. So we've done 3 years of primarily Bonneville Shoreline Trail, what we call rehabilitation work. I do think there is some need for some definitions around these, and we have shared those actually this week, and I'm happy to provide those to you, what maintenance, what rehabilitation, what trail construction is. So we will get you those definitions, at least from our perspective. So we have done 3 years of Bonneville Shoreline Trail rehabilitation work. And this is work that is primarily focused on the Shoreline Trail. And the Shoreline Trail was built over 30 years ago for the most part. And that work does use contractual services. And so that is, I think, really the point where it's like, people will see a contractor out with a piece of equipment on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail and start wondering, is that construction or is that maintenance? And I think there's plenty of communication and work that we can do to improve that. This year, we tried to push that out as much as we can. So our maintenance related or rehabilitation work went out into our Foothills newsletter. You can read all about each of the 3 years of the rehabilitation projects on our website, along with photos of each of the areas and maps of those areas. So there's a lot of information related to that. So primarily it's been on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. This year we did 3 maintenance or rehabilitation projects. The maintenance of the utility road that Rocky Mountain Power was using, and we installed new drainage erosion measures. And on that section, we also did maintenance of another section of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. We had a contractor come in and rehabilitate that trail that was done 30 years ago. So they're primarily taking a trail that has become narrowed and restoring it back to its original width, or even smaller than its original width. 42 inches is the goal on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. And then this year we also added in the 19th Avenue mountain bike trail, and that was constructed in 2021. It has become a very popular trail, primarily for high school mountain bike teams. So they use this trail on a week. And that trail had a contractor go through and conduct rehabilitation of that. So fixing berms, cleaning it up. There was one section of that trail that when the contractor at the end of that trail, he added in an alternate jump this year. And I think that has also caused some concern from residents. When Public Lands inspected that, we had the contractor come back and mitigate that and remove that jump because it did not fit the character of the 19th Avenue mountain biking trail. So I think that is one of the things that you're hearing as well. So hope that provides a little bit of context on what we've done this year. And like I said, all of these are on our website, and I'm happy to share more information about those 3 projects.
Okay, and then I had said that I have one more question, but I actually have 2, and hopefully they'll be kind of quick. I'm sorry. So I can't remember when we added the stewardship and education coordinator. I think it was last year. But I see that we have it listed in the staffing document. Is that someone that we have right now in Parks?
No.
Only in the staffing document. It's not in your budget.
Okay, I might need to go look at that one. We have a position that's volunteer in stewardship.
Okay.
That is currently funded, and that position leads all of our volunteer. They're also supporting our new Foothills Stewards program that we're doing this year in the Foothills as well.
Okay, and what is that? That program?
That program. So this year we started a Foothill Stewardship program. We have 10 dedicated stewards that all signed up to help lead volunteer events. So they do trail maintenance work. This week they were planting native cacti in the foothills. Last month they were planting native plantings around Bonneville Boulevard. So that is a stewardship group that we really hope to build. When it comes to maintenance of the Salt Lake City foothills, we know we will not be able to do this alone. And we have to have friends of groups and other partners. So the stewardship is the first year we've implemented this model. We hope to grow that next year to mountain bike teams and to other kind of organizations. If they want to get involved, they can with us.
So it's sort of like an adopt a highway, but a trail instead, and is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they're not associated with specific locations.
Yeah.
But yes, that
Okay.
is essentially what we're doing. And happy to share this, but we have a full link on our website with the details of this program. Also with, if there's anybody interested and wants to get involved in the stewardship program, there's a website and an application process.
Okay. And so I told you that people, watch this issue closely and they hang on every word that we talk about when it comes to trails. So we've heard 2 references to an event on May 28th at Bonneville. And people have already written in to ask me about what this event is. And we talked about it. I think it was at our first meeting in May. It was mentioned in the staff report from the administration that there would be an event. And then the mayor alluded to an event at our last meeting. Can you tell the people that are listening who are very interested in the trails issue what that event is?
Yeah, of course.
And yeah.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have this stuff going on with the implementation plan, but we're also doing a lot. There's activity every day in the foothills, and we're still trying to keep on top of that. So what the event is on May 28th is the grand opening of the Bonneville Boulevard Trailhead. So this is a project that was funded 3 years ago. We have both city funds, impact fees that funded half of it, and then we were able to get a grant from the state of Utah to fund the other half. This is focused primarily on 4 trailheads: Bonneville Boulevard, Popperton Park, Emigration, Victory Road, and the 5th one is 18th Avenue. But the 18th Avenue one will be done later in collaboration with public utilities. So the event next week is primarily just the grand opening of the Bonneville Boulevard Trailhead. There's a new kind of restroom facility there. There's public art bike racks. There's new signage. You'll see the rollout of our first kind of big kiosk signs that we're going to start going in at all of our major trailheads.
You know I love signage.
Yes. If you go there today, you'll see all of our new signs. They have small signage that goes to our website with information about what is happening in the foothills along with dog bags. So infrastructure like that is what we're celebrating next week.
It's not the opening of a new trail.
No.
Or anything like that.
Nope.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. If I don't know, I am assuming that it's open to the public since we've been talking about it publicly. So thanks for giving that additional information for members of the public that want to show up. And I'm assuming that the location, this is the one where also there was like the flooding and it was like threatening the integrity of the road. Is that right?
Just above that is where, yeah, we had some issues with erosion coming up Bonneville Boulevard.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to get more, thank you, I appreciate that. On the stewardship thing, I'd love to get more information on that program and like who can volunteer and how are they selected, things like that.
Yep.
So if you could provide that too, that would be great.
Would love to.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Knew that one was going to be a long one. We're only 15 minutes over. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, golf fund. Yay. At the table we have Allison Rowland. Oh, I'm sorry, Kim. You're at the table too. Yeah. I'm sorry. You just got situated. Welcome back.
Mr. Chair.
And hold on just a second. And Matt Kameyer, Golf Division? Yeah, okay. Good to see you again, Matt. Thanks. Yes, Councilmember Lopez Chavez.
I just have to announce it's the LPGA Tour this weekend in Utah. That's the ladies' Professional Golf Association tournament. So it is rather timely to talk about golf.
Are they going to play in Salt Lake?
No, they're playing in southern Utah, our neighbors to the south of us. Yeah.
What a shame. Real missed opportunity there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In a similar problem that I had with the General Department of Public Land staff report, I also managed to mess up a paragraph in the Gulf Enterprise Fund report. The errors have been corrected. That was in the second paragraph, and now what you have in packets or online is correct, I hope, as far as I know. So, story on golf is, first of all, that golf expenditures in FY26 would actually surpass its revenue budget, which is a trick I think many of us would like to know how to do. But essentially, it's because they're tapping into their savings in the golf CIP. As you may remember, the $2 fee on each nine-hole round, there we go, has been put to the side in a something similar to the Capital Investment Project Fund for the general fund. And so this year they are using 14.2 million, or about, 14.2 million to make new investments, and that equates to over 500,000 more than the previous year. The expenditure budget is, and I think I just said that backward again. It's like I have a mental block, sorry. The revenue will be 14.2 million, so this is what they are working, this is their expenditure budget. I'm sorry, it's the revenue budget. It really is a mental block. The expenditure budget is 26.6 million, which would be the 30% increase. So this is where the investment in CIP will occur. You also probably recall that the Golf Fund has been subsidized by the General Fund for the past several years. And this does make it different than all the other city enterprise funds, which are essentially on their own in terms of balancing their budgets and making sure that their expenditures don't exceed their revenue. But so golf is able to use their CIP fund to fund these investments, and but it is not allowed to use it to offset operations costs. And the great news in FY26 budget is that golf would reduce the total subsidy by the general fund to the golf fund from 2.1 million to 1.8 million. So it's evidence of golf moving in the direction that I believe you have wanted. The key elements of the golf proposal include funding this 14.1 million in capital investment, in CIP improvements, same thing. New revenue is expected also from the completion of the Rose Park irrigation infrastructure project, so that will be ready to go by the end of this year, and the new driving range facility, which should be finished this year as well. That's at Glendale. Staffing levels would not change, so the total number of FTEs would be 34.15, and there will be 47.64 seasonal or hourly employees. So I'll turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, Allison. There we go. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to meet and discuss the situation in our golf budget for this next fiscal year. There's a lot of exciting elements within this budget. In previous years, it's not always been so exciting to discuss the golf budget, but thankfully we're on a better path at this time. We'll just jump right into this. Next slide. Allison did a very good job of giving an overview of the changes here, and I'd like to talk about the initiatives that are within our budget. Next slide, please. There are four major elements that I'll discuss. The first one is the Golf CIP projects. The second one will be raw revenue increase, projected revenue increases for this next fiscal year, personal services increases, and inflationary and contractual increases. Next slide. Okay, the capital reinvestment that we're doing in fiscal year 26, the total is $5.9 million, which was on top of $7.7 million last year, which is, again, this is the story that I continue to tell over and over again, because this is how we're trying to improve our situation within the Golf Fund, is being able to reinvest back into the assets that we have without having to take money from the general fund in order to do that, because that's definitely not the route that we would hope to go as an enterprise fund. We would like to be self-sustaining within our revenues and keep our expenses within that as well. Some of the projects that we have that I've listed here, we've already started in previous years. That would be tee box leveling projects at all of our courses. That is a 4 to 5 year plan to be able to address as many of those tee boxes as we can, which also includes the installation of a lot of new forward tee boxes, which I'm excited about as I get older and don't hit the ball as far as I used to. Cart path improvements, we were able to make the majority of those last year, and we're in the process of working on Bonneville this year. So we have another $625,000 towards cart path improvements within the FY26 budget. We also have driving range fence repairs at the Bonneville driving range. On-course restrooms at 3 of our courses, we have allocated money for that. 3 new maintenance buildings for our golf courses. Allison mentioned the Glendale driving range project, which has not started yet. It's been funded. We hope to get the design phase moving here within the next few months for that facility, which will add covered hitting areas and also heated hitting areas for golfers to be able to use that facility year-round, which will have a positive revenue component attached to that as well. This is a huge one, is the $3 million that we have allocated in FY26 for a Nibley Park irrigation project. That is the only golf course right now in the state, and I've not looked outside the state, but that is still manually irrigated. That means somebody all night long goes and drags hoses across that entire golf course and that property in order to make sure that it's watered. So obviously that's not a very efficient way to distribute a valuable resource on the golf course there. So to be able to have that money there in addition to the Rose Park irrigation system, which we hope to have construction beginning on the winter of this year. So again, this is a reflection of what I would say a significant increase in the popularity and demand for golf, which has allowed us to be able to set aside money from the excess or surplus revenue and be able to turn it right back around and put it into these projects, which allows us to be not only competitive, but to address deferred capital projects that have not been done or even thought about for decades. Next slide, please. So an important component to this is a revenue increase that we have projected of $537,000. This is primarily being funded through increases to user fees or green fees that we have at each golf course. Again, this is we're an enterprise fund. We pay very close attention to our use levels and our utilization levels because we recognize that golf is a voluntary activity that people use their discretionary income on, and with the economy being where it has been the last few years, we're very definitely aware of that. At the same time, throughout all these, I would say, economic red flags that it points to me that says maybe we should pump the brakes a little bit on where we have set our fees. The demand continues to grow. In fiscal year '25, our rounds increased 16% over the previous year. And currently in this fiscal year, we are 6.5% above where we were last year. So that's on top of that. So those are very good numbers. And again, my hope is to continue to turn that revenue around and put it right back into our golf courses, because we're still about $35 million in deferred capital needs. Next slide, please. Personal services, there's an increase there of $169,000. We're not adding any FTEs. A lot of this is just being able to hire additional part-time employees to help cover ever-increasing busy golf courses. And next slide, please. The inflationary and contractual increases that we're seeing includes a 20% increase in water, $107,000. That's our biggest increase. The total of this amount, for our inflationary and contractual increase is $35,000. That number comes down primarily because we retired a lease on golf carts at Nibley Park and purchased new ones with cash last year, so we no longer have that debt service moving forward. And that is all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Councilmember Lobo Chavez.
I am proud to say that I was one of the 6% increase attendees of the golf courses this year, and I'm having so much fun. I just have to say, on the record, I misunderstood golf until this year, and the greens in our city are so beautiful. They're really well maintained, and whoever our agrologists and superintendents are doing very well. So just want to say thank you as a participant of golf. My question was really related to in terms of, you mentioned the intake of water. Is that an increase of intake as well as the expense, or just the expense because of rates and the rate changes?
Well, primarily that's an increase in the cost of water. We always try to stay within a fixed budget, but that continues to be something that probably has grown a lot more than we had hoped that it would. Our overall water budget is $1.4 million, which is about $700,000 more than the point where I thought this is too much we're paying for water. So we've, from primarily an economic standpoint, have tried to reduce our use of water just because the cost has been ever increasing and escalating. We also want to be good stewards with our water as well, but as far as the budget goes, the increase is based upon the increased cost of water.
That's definitely my main concern. I've gotten to tour some other municipal golf courses in southern Utah specifically, and I'll be headed there this weekend actually for the LPGA. But something that I see like Hurricane City or St. George City or Ivins, as they start to increase their golf footprint, is more kind of intelligent use of water. And they're in an even more stringent and impacted climate zone and high impact areas. So I'm just wondering, how else we can be resourceful in terms of consumption. It's a great sport, but it's also one of the largest consumers of water. And that's something that's really interesting. I wanted to change the subject unless you have a comment to that. My secondary kind of question, and it's in this, in our transmittal, is related to any RFIs in the future. It looks like in 2019 was the last time Nibley had an RFI for, a contractor to come in and provide a Topgolf-like experience. I'm wondering if we have any other revenue-producing RFIs in the future.
I'll address your first question around water use. Our biggest challenge at the golf courses, and Kim brought this up with parks as well, is just the age of our irrigation system, the infrastructure there. I would say that the golf courses are a lot older than the parks. The Rose Park system that we're in the process of replacing is 65 years old, and that's not an efficient system. But in addition to installing a more responsive system that's more programmable that we can dial in, we also look at reducing our turf, our irrigated turf, as much as we can. So, for example, the proposed plan that we have at Rose Park reduces about 25% of their irrigated turf. That doesn't mean we're replacing it with nothing. We would replace that with a drought-resistant turf that would no longer need regular irrigation. In addition to that, we can also change the architecture a little bit of the golf course, how it's played, moving tee boxes around. Areas where you normally would hit over irrigated turf, we'll replace that with non-irrigated turf. So that's how we get to that number, that 25% reduction in turf, and that equates to a projected 44% reduction in the use of water. So that is, I think that's an important factor or feature of what we're doing. We work with Utah State University to develop different types of turf that we look for specific characteristics of turf to be on a golf course. I mean, there's a lot of drought tolerant or drought resistant turf types, but they're not the best to play on. So for instance, if we have turf in an out of play area, one, we want the golfer to be able to find the ball, and then two, we want them to be able to play it out of the grass. And so that's what we're I think our 4th year of our partnership to try to develop a better turf type. We're almost there, but it's not all the way there yet. But those are the elements I think that we can do to help. The technology gets better, the water distribution, the different heads that we can use, and the programs that we have. And the second question that you had about an RFI, we do not currently have something in the works for that. We're definitely open to it, and I do have conversations on a somewhat regular basis of individuals looking to partner with the city. I think the last one we did was around the Nibley Park golf course. That didn't produce any responses to that RFI. Open to continuing to do that if we have something that makes sense. But right now, it's still on an individual basis of people contacting me and having discussions.
Yeah, that's great. My only comment to that was going to be related to revenue production. It seems that there's an increase of similar types of projects in other municipalities, and just wondering why maybe they're not attracted to our golf courses or bringing those experiences to our city versus, say, Draper City or Bountiful and North Salt Lake, which also have golf courses.
My best guess on this, and there may be more knowledgeable people, is that, again, we have not had the capital to bring to the table to match generally. And so for somebody to come in and fully fund that themselves, those opportunities aren't there. So some of the other projects you've talked about, there was some matching funds that went into that, whether it was ZAP tax funds or transfers from departments or whatnot.
Oh, Councilmember Dugan.
Thanks, Matt. And I appreciate the discussion we had, 4 years ago when we instituted the additional green fees to support your maintenance stuff. And it's taken those a few years to get there, but now we have the funds to cover that stuff. And we didn't, it just kind of we were saving money and not knowing we were saving money, and now we have the opportunity to spend it in the right way. And so I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate the work on, it's been a long time for the Rose Park, but I'm glad to see that, getting to the point where we're actually going to have a new irrigation system in there, because I think that will also help back to my comment earlier about water usage, a metric on, not so much on the dollar side of the house, but the gallon side of the house, how much we're savings on the gallon side of the house with the new irrigation systems and with the work that you're doing with Utah State on the drought-tolerant grasses, and not watering the further out of where I play, out of bounds areas with water. So I appreciate that, but I would really like to see some of those metrics in the future on how we're saving that the precious drop of water, not so much the dollar, but the water itself. So, but I appreciate all the work that you've been doing there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Matt, I just want to say thanks so much for all the work that you've done with golf. I remember these briefings before you came to the city, and they were a lot more stressful. And so I just want to thank you for everything that you've done and your leadership in this area.
I appreciate that. I would like to acknowledge one I think, a major factor in that allowed us to kind of get our feet under us. It's being able to receive the subsidy that we did, which offset some overhead costs that we have in golf, that allowed us to kind of really focus on addressing some initial needs, and to be able to get our feet under us. That's, if we had to continue to pay some of those other expenses, I don't think we would be in the position that we're in. So again, I think it's taken a lot of things that I still don't understand within the market and within the game. It's taken off and continues to be as popular as it is. So I don't take credit for any of it. We're just trying to keep up as best we can. But again, I do appreciate the willingness of the council and the administration to work with the Golf Fund and to help put us in a better position.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Now, we are making up time. So we have a break scheduled. So let's go ahead and break until 3:40. 3:45? Let's do that. 3:45. Yeah. We are moving on to agenda item number 4, which is continuing our fiscal year 2025-26 budget discussions with the Department of Economic Development. Come on down. We've got Austin Kimmel, Council Policy Analyst, Lorena Rifo Jensen, Director, Department Director, and Jacob Maxwell, Deputy Director. Good to see you. All right.
Thanks. Thanks, council members. The Department of Economic Development is here to present its proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 budget. Economic Development leads Salt Lake City's efforts in promoting economic opportunities and provides support and resources for local businesses. The department's total budget is $2,896,278. That's a nearly 39% decrease, or about a $1.9 million decrease from the FY25 budget. The majority of the decrease is due to a proposed transfer of the Arts Council Division and the Arts Council Foundation from Economic Development to the Department of Community and Neighborhoods, or CAN. The transfer of the Arts Council reduces the budget by about $1.3 million in personnel and other costs. Another detail in the budget is a reduction in the proposed amount for the Construction Mitigation Grant Program, which the department manages. The grant program is proposed to equal about $350,000 in FY26, which is at about a $250,000 decrease from the previous fiscal year. This is due to an expected decline in the typical size and intensity of city construction projects. This and other key details are found starting on page 2 of the staff report. Policy questions begin at the bottom of page 1. We've reserved some time for questions and discussion at the end of this presentation, and with that, I will now turn it over to Lorena and her team.
Good afternoon. It's so wonderful to see you all. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to begin by saying Salt Lake City is writing a new chapter, one that blends economic resiliency, cultural vibrancy, and long-term vision. And we're doing this uniquely, the Salt Lake City way, by investing in people, place, and partnerships. In other words, we're writing a new chapter, and the human-centered focus that is at the heart of Salt Lake City's Economic Development Department has not changed. Let me give you an example. Let's take Open Street. What began as a response to pandemic-era challenges has evolved into something transformative. By the pedestrianizing, I knew I was going to blow that off, Main Street, we're not just creating a place to walk, we're creating a destination, a thriving corridor where local businesses, arts, residents, families, and community converge to enjoy the spirit of our city. But as we build, we're also listening. Through our construction mitigation grants, we're making sure small businesses aren't left behind. Because growth shouldn't come at the expense of those who've been here building our city all along, especially our local and small businesses. At the same time, we're harnessing the power of creativity through the WAKE, the Great Salt Lake, an art initiative that draws attention to critical environmental issues. And I'm referring to our Great Salt Lake, of course, while also activating public spaces and supporting local artists. Art is not just culture, it's an economy, and it brings communities together. Another example is our special assessment area increase that we have been facing, and they continue to increase. This further supports the growth and development of businesses and cultural districts. By enabling businesses to co-invest in clean, safe, welcoming neighborhoods, we're helping them take control of their own growth and identity. And we're not stopping there. A study is underway, like we did with North Temple, with the North Temple corridor, reflects our commitment to equitable development, ensuring all parts of our city see real, tangible progress. And we're already seeing that investment as the mayor's budget includes approximately $3 million to keep the area clean and safe. Salt Lake City continues to deepen its global ties. We have reconnected with our sister city, Matsumoto, Japan, a partnership that opens the door to cultural exchange, innovation, and international trade. And thank you, Councilmember Mano, for going last year. I know that there was some discussion about beer coming here and beer going there, so. And at the same global spirit, we transfer the Foreign Trade Zone to the World Trade Center, Utah. This bold move will help businesses across our state, not just here in Salt Lake City. They will access the tools they need to thrive in international markets. So what does it all mean? It means Salt Lake City is building intelligently, inclusively, and internationally. We're not just managing growth, we're designing it with purpose, with equity, and with the future in mind. With that, if we could just go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Just to give you some idea of some of our work, and I also want to recognize other departments, the mayor's office, and council for your support as we do this critical work for our city and our community. We've had 19 wins, which are basically written impact narratives. Those are small, large businesses that have expanded and are contributing to our economy. Over $570 million in capital expenditure. That's the investment that some of the companies that we have worked with have actually invested in Salt Lake City. Through lease and build out, we have seen over 1 million square feet. We've also seen over 1,500 jobs. Some of those are high-paying jobs. Also, our Economic Development Loan Fund, we lent $2.2 million, which equals to 142 jobs. And 191 businesses last year received construction mitigation grants. I do want to say that 142 jobs, those are part of the Economic Development Loan Funds, and I cannot classify those as high-paying jobs because we didn't ask for that information. Go ahead and let's go to the next one. Again, just highlighting some of the things that you have attended, and we appreciate the support that we have received. Last year, we had Granary District, Open Streets, and we also had a couple of days here in our downtown. We also did run a construction mitigation social media campaign that supported our Sure House businesses because of the extension of that project did impact our local businesses. So I appreciated everyone that worked on that, and Councilmember Young letting us know what was taking place, so we appreciated that partnership. Special assessment, there's definitely an increase in interest in that tool that will support business district and cultural districts. The North Temple Corridor, and we're seeing investment in there. I already mentioned Matsumoto, Japan, and the Foreign Trade Zone Partnership. So with that, if we could go into the next slide. Basically, this is just an overview of the changes, and I will turn the time to Jake.
Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. So these are our 3 requests. The first is Arts Council transfer, another with a reduction in construction mitigation, and then the third is for Open Streets, but we'll get those details if we can go to the next slide. Okay, so the first is the Arts Council transfer. The administration would like to transfer the Arts Council from the Department of Economic Development to Community and Neighborhoods. That's a cost of $1.3 million approximately that we would see that drop in our budget. Next slide. The next request is for construction mitigation grants. When we inherited this program, it was primarily to support funding our future. As those projects wrap up, we expect a decline in the duration and intensity of some of those projects. So we are Still calibrating a bit. We are working on a mayor's goal this year to turn this into a more formal program, but we do expect to see a decrease in need. So the request is a reduction of $250,000 to the construction mitigation grant program. Next slide. And then the last request is open streets. This is a non-departmental item. Our request is really just to make this an ongoing expense. This enables us to not have to RFP every year, reduces administrative burden, and it increases confidence in contractors to be able to gain sponsors and to improve the event. Next slide. So in summary, our requests are about $1.5 million reduction to our department. I believe that's all. Next slide. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
Councilmember Petro.
Thank you, and thank you for all of the things from last year. It was exciting. Okay, we're closing 700 North. So on that construction mitigation, make sure we're ready for that, please. I am concerned on the page 184 in the budget book. Business development is going from 1.5 to 1.3. And I'm seeing essentially no increase in the administration. If we want to be in a better position, and I desperately do, where we don't have as much pressure on property taxes, rather we have commercial activity that is paying for green spaces, it feels to me like deep investment in this department is required probably 5 years ago, but definitely today. Can you explain to me the nature of the decrease in business development in particular, since that seems like the key to reducing our dependence on property tax?
I would need to see those numbers, but I believe we have moved 2 budget items. One was the Main Street pedestrian study. We are letting that amount fall to fund balance because that would have to be approved by the goals of SB 195. The other item was moving the cultural core out of one of our cost centers. So those could be contributors, but I'm speculating a bit.
I would love if you could just like drop an email to me clarifying.
Okay.
You all know I'm heavily predisposed to making investments here. They will not be any relief in the immediate term, but this is the strategy to making sure that we leave things better than we found it and the future doesn't, they solve new problems, not the ones that we're trying to solve. Thank you.
Councilmember Dugan.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And on the construction mitigation, I know there's some concerns about providing enough funds for the the length of the full year. And at one point we were handing out 2,000 and now we've increased it to 3,000. When did we increase it, change the amount we were granting to $3,000? And have we thought about, is that enough? Should we increase it to make it to $4,000? And the timeline on when we think business will no longer need it and other businesses may need it, as Councilmember Petro was talking about 700 North. I know Sugar House will be starting to ramp down. 700 North may be ramping up. There might be another area that's going to ramp up. And is 3,000 enough? And that reason for that $250,000 drop?
That's a really good question, Councilmember Dugan. We changed the amount in 2023.
Okay.
After we always survey our businesses, and they provided that some didn't even apply because it didn't seem worth their time. However, I do want to assure you that our application is very simple. So that's one thing we've made sure. This last time around, when we survey our businesses who are considered our clients and really a critical part of our city and our economy, they were comfortable with 3,000 businesses who may be experiencing the stress of their clients getting to the door. In terms of achieving their sales, I would say that 4,005, it's almost like we need to just make a decision, because 4, and then we're going to get to 5, and that's not going to be enough. We don't check what they're doing with their funding. We encourage them to use that to communicate with their current clients and to ensure that potentially any future clients that they may be able to obtain from their social media. But we don't track how they're spending their money, and I don't think we should.
But we also just realized that, yeah, we're reducing the funding because we also see a drop in the need because of different construction zones and I can see Foothill or Sugar House being a lot of businesses there in a very small area, and I don't know 700 North very well, but I'm thinking 700 North may not have the same number of businesses that would be affected.
Yeah, I can speak to that a bit. We've counted the businesses around each of the publicized construction projects engineering has put out there. And so if we were to fund every business that we counted, that would be about $650,000. We see an application rate of about 50% on a good day. So that would be about $350,000 that we would need. Plus, we are asking to roll over, to carry over some any remaining funds from the recent budget amendment that we don't use this year, in the event that we can't do all of our outreach and get those grants out the door.
If I could add couple more points. The program has become more popular as we market, and we actually go and meet with the business community. So we could see more than 50%, but we're also the type of department, we don't want to ask you for money that we're not going to need. Therefore, maybe we're too conservative in our approach, and yet we're very committed that we don't want to take resources that other departments may need to have, and we may not be able to put out there in terms of, but it has become more popular. And also we rely heavily, and Jake has done a phenomenal job working with engineering to ensure we have the right information. Now, some of those projects take longer. The number that we just gave you will not be enough, because we could go to round 2 to round 3. Sugar House had 3 rounds.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.
Lopez Chavez.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for the presentation. I think this is wonderful. I just wanted to echo some of the concerns that I've heard over the year in regards to the Business Advisory Board, and you touched on this, Councilmember Dugan, in relation to the construction mitigation grant. I actually want to talk about the facade grant, which is a grant that we didn't offer in the last fiscal cycle, but something that has been brought up is still the need to assess security or store frontage support and subsidy. Just something that, if we don't see this in this fiscal cycle, starting to think about as we start to, again, finish construction projects, what happens to the remaining fund, and thinking about how we can deploy those resources to isolated areas in our city. Have we considered identifying those nodes?
So we don't manage the facade grant. That's managed by CAN, our community and neighborhoods. We work very closely, and we actually, I feel that we partner extremely well. But because it's a facade grant and it's used by businesses, I would say often the business community thinks it's run by us. So definitely, I mean, the Economic Development Loan Fund used to be actually run out of CAN, and then it was transferred in 2020 to the Department of Economic Development for that same reason. Jake, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I understood the last part of your question. I apologize.
Yeah, in terms of understanding how we can better infuse that funding. I think what I see, and what I was just pulling up, for example, the city of Denver, take it for example, and they've got a great resource and lots of different ways where they are stacking programs to help businesses. And when I hear the BAB's concerns, what I really hear is trying to overcome gaps in funding for small businesses and entrepreneurs that are putting all their life savings in to take a chance at being an entrepreneur in our city, and just thinking about how can we facilitate some of those necessary tenant improvements or facilitating security so that way they can provide safety for their consumers as well.
Yeah, for some of those, we are working more closely with the CRA. So for example, in North Temple, for any of those empty spaces, we would work with the CRA to potentially sublease those spaces at a reduced. And then if they have a long-term tenant, then that increases confidence for the landlords to maybe invest in some of those tenant improvements. So we are always looking at creative ways we can work with other city departments to make sure that businesses can benefit from the variety of programs.
Okay, thank you. And then, yeah, my secondary question was related to open streets. Main Street specifically, and the kind of fourth section of Main Street, which is where we see our nightlife, bars, and entertainment, has undergone and experienced a few recent closures.
Yes.
And so I wanted to better understand how can open streets, if we're going to continue to fund it on Main Street, I do have some concerns related to the activation and the presence of existing businesses. You know, can we better expand our footprint since we're seeing more storefronts close on Main Street?
So I have Peter, if you wanted to come up, and he has been assigned to Open Street, and he has brought this issue to our attention. And he can outline what we're doing to ensure that we're doing this right. Like I said, we don't want to spend money, taxpayers' money, and things that don't work. But I think this year is a little bit different, so I'll let you speak to that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Council Member, for the question. And yes, I think we've seen a couple closures on Main Street that are unfortunate. We've met with those businesses, talked with many of them about their experiences, and actually they're all kind of not connected to each other. Some random closure issues, which is really unfortunate because they were really great businesses. And also that block is pretty heavily impacted by the loss of Alibi and Twist, just in Exchange Place as well. So with that, we learned that while we were planning and these closures happened. So we've been working with the remaining businesses there and making sure that they're happy with what we're doing. There were some concerns around some of the activation that we've done in previous years, and we've worked to address some of those concerns, specifically with Acre, the new restaurant there on Exchange Place. You know, they're new to the event, and so we had to make some special considerations for them.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I think that's accurate. You know, closures aren't necessarily identifiable related to economic pressures, but more so the ownership and the management behind them. A lot of them getting tired, quite frankly. But I wanted to better understand, since we're seeing a lot more restaurateurs and retail and less bars and entertainment and clubs, that we also provide a safe experience that's welcoming for those that are trying to access those retail and restaurateur spaces and still create the effects of a promenade. So, yeah.
Those are great questions, Councilmember Lopez Chavez. And one of the things that we did this year, which is critical, we actually had several meetings. In fact, we had one meeting here located downstairs, and we met with the businesses. We wanted to hear their thoughts, their ideas. I believe also the administration, Jill has brought up, you know, other festivals taking place, and we're partnering with those entities. In fact, yesterday, Peter was exchanging emails with the Arts Festival. And also, hopefully, we've talked to Pride, X Games. Am I missing anyone else?
The Red Bull Soapbox Derby folks as well will be participating during Open Streets.
We need that feedback, and it's ongoing. One of the things that we're doing in preparation for a potential recession is Will Wright is going to be meeting with small businesses in our downtown area. And then Jake with Minerva Jimenez in our office will be meeting with larger companies where we're talking to them on an ongoing basis, seeing what their plans for recession and anything else the city can do.
I am also worried about some of the gaps that we have on our main street downtown, and I recognize the limited, have a ton of tools in the toolbox on some of those properties. But it's something that we had some conversations with the previous council member for District 4, Councilmember Valdemoros, and I, with some of the businesses. And I'm just wondering if that is something that you think it would be helpful to pick up on. You don't have to answer here.
Okay.
And then if there is a way to tie that into what we're doing with open streets. And if there are any projections about what a more permanent, if we were to do a permanent closure of Main Street, and if there were to be, pedestrian only, north and south, what would that mean for, would it mean more empty storefronts, or would it mean all of those gap teeth are filled in? Yeah, I would love to know more about that and about Main Street specifically. So, and again, you don't have to answer right now. It's more of a comment than a question.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then my other feedback, which is also more of a comment than a question, is just appreciating the meeting that we had recently with Arts Council about the mural efforts that the city is, and the mural program that we talked about, and I think getting kind of on the same page about more of what those of us that have been asking about murals, what we're envisioning versus and what are the potential barriers that we would need to overcome for that. I really appreciated the work that's already gone into that. I hope that a lot of that can be translated into the very recent legislative intent that we passed about doing smaller grants for small art projects in the district. And so, yeah, I hope that we can still move forward on those and have those conversations with the transfer. I'm sure it won't really impact that at all, but yeah, just wanted to give that feedback.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone? Oh, Councilmember Lopez Chavez.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a final comment. I am excited by the potential of attracting industry, specifically in the financial sector. There's a lot of growth, and there's been lots of announcements about attracting those campuses back to Main Street. And I think one of the things that makes me feel confident in the existing infrastructure of Main Street, there's obviously been lots of announcements in the last year about capital improvements and infrastructure related to sports, entertainment, culture, and convention. But I just wanted to, I guess, state this, that a lot of the spaces that I see, a lot of our commercial square footage can adapt to the financial sector, can adapt to office space. We just had the State of Downtown event today, and CBRE spoke about this in terms of our commercial real estate needs. And a growing capital city needs attainable housing and home ownership. We see in District 4 specifically an increase of residential product, more formally known as, or informally known as rental units, but something I think we don't talk enough about is our commercial real estate gaps and how we meet those trends, so that way we can build and institutionalize the economic needs and meeting those needs, so that families can take that jump into anchoring themselves into our city. So if there's any data or any kind of repository that helps me, and I think this council cohort, better understand how we can maximize use of existing commercial space,
Okay.
I think that would be really interesting to better understand. My concerns that I hear are normally from small businesses, and they're struggling to find affordable rent.
Yes.
Square footage is very expensive, as you know. It's not just the downtown, it's Sugar House, it's downtown, avenues, even the west side. We're seeing lots of displacement of small businesses. But I also am thinking about these larger campuses. Where can we find the next Newmont College and place them? What other spaces can we help attract? Are there types of building capacities that we need to work with the CRA to identify for these needs outside of housing, and thinking a little bit more strategically that way. I think that would help me.
I really appreciate that comment. I think it was Jake who mentioned what came out of the North Temple Action Plan was a partnership with the CRA, and I think that's going to be one tool. But definitely, we can probably sit down with them and work with them and come up with something that would be helpful to its small businesses. Just like you're hearing that, we hear that all the time. Yeah, of course.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks so much.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, next on our agenda is the Office of, oh wait, that's a written, Office of the City Attorney, which will be a written briefing. So is that it? Oh, well, that's exciting. And so I guess, yeah, that brings us to the end of our agenda, unless we have any announcements from staff. Okay. I don't have any announcements
Are you
as
sure you want to
chair.
adjourn?
What?
Are you sure you want to adjourn?
I know, it feels weird.
It's light outside.
I feel like as soon as we do, we're gonna realize that we forgot something, but I'm gonna go for it anyway.
Okay.
All right, that concludes our work session for the day. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.